This video will show the TeamMate Enterprise provisioning process from start to finish. First, the reseller must add the enterprise in the portal. Enter the name of the company and the email address of the global administrator who will be granting permissions on behalf of the company. If you wish to limit the number of users that they can add, feel free to do so here, but this field is optional. It can also be updated at any time to adjust for company size fluctuations. Next, choose which SBC regions you want to enable for the enterprise. Best practice is to choose the one that is closest geographically to the customer, but if you plan on setting up multiple direct routes, you will need one SBC region per route. Choose which services you want to enable on this enterprise. PBX, SIP-trunk, and while it's not shown here, SMS is now an option as well. If you select PBX, a list of possible PBX softwares will appear. To enable just one type, select the desired one and use the blue arrow to move it from unassigned to assigned. Multiple types are allowed, however, which can be beneficial for larger organizations. To select multiple at a time, hold down Control while you click, or select a range from the list by holding down Shift while you click. The green arrow can be used to move every option from one column to the other. I happen to be using NetSapiens today, so that's the one I will choose. Click Submit, and now the responsibility shifts from the reseller to the global administrator for the enterprise. They will receive an email with an invitation code and a link to use for registration. They must use the link in the email for the registration process. The URL is customized for authentication purposes. They can use the standard URL after registration is complete. Copy the invitation code, click the Complete button, and then the admin will be prompted to log in with their Microsoft credentials. They will be given a set of permissions that they need to grant consent to. They can read more about the permissions here, but we also have the full list documented in our knowledge base. After granting these permissions, they will be prompted to log in again. This time, they will get a second set of permissions. Click Accept, and they will be successfully logged in and registered. Now it is time to configure direct routing. Ensure there is at least one extra license showing as available here. In this video, I was using an E5 license, which includes the phone add-on necessary, but if you're using a more limited Microsoft license package, you will need to purchase the phone license separately. In that case, there would be two rows here instead of one for the base license and one for the phone license, and there would need to be an available license for each type. If there is not at least one extra license of each type required available, here's what must be done. First, the global admin must purchase the additional Microsoft licenses in the Microsoft Admin Center. Second, they need to set this project aside for 24 hours while Microsoft servers update. After those 24 hours are up, log into the TeamMate portal again and continue. Select the desired gateway, paste the invitation code from the email, and choose a domain from the drop-down menu. Ensure the domain you choose is healthy and has Skype services enabled. Then click Complete Direct Routing. This typically takes a few minutes. Sometimes the UI doesn't refresh immediately, so a decent practice is to work on something else for a few minutes and then refresh the page. Once it's complete, the admin will receive a confirmation email. If desired, it is possible to configure additional direct routes. The process is much the same. You will need the same invitation code as what was sent in the original registration email. If the admin no longer has that email, the reseller can get the code for them by clicking Edit Enterprise from the reseller dashboard. Now that direct routing is complete, if you log into the Microsoft admin portal, you will see that a new user has been created for each direct route that you set up. Its display name will be direct routing user, and its username will say do not delete at connecttoteams.com, what have you. We use this profile to automate the direct routing process. It is responsible for everything that was just changed on the Microsoft system. It was also assigned the available Microsoft licenses that we told you to make sure were available before starting. You cannot delete this user, hence the name. If you do, direct routing will break and the provisioning process will need to begin all over again. However, once direct routing is set up and complete, you can remove the Microsoft licenses from the user so you don't have to pay for the extra license subscription indefinitely. To do that, simply click on the user, go to Licenses and Apps, and unselect the licenses that have been assigned to it. Again, an E5 license was used for this demo, and that includes the necessary phone add-on. If you're using a setup where the phone license was purchased separately, you'll have two licenses to uncheck here. Back on the main user page, we can see that the direct routing user is now showing as unlicensed, and that means you are ready to move on to PBX configuration. This step can be done either by the admin or the reseller, but because resellers tend to be more familiar with PBX terminology, it's typically most reasonable for them to gather and input this data. Select the PBX type from the dropdown, name the PBX location. If the enterprise is only going to use one PBX, feel free to name it something generic, but if they're planning on using multiple, make sure this name is descriptive. UDP is the most common transport type, but TCP is available as well. Similarly, host is the most common DNS lookup type, but SRV is available as well. Enter the PBX SIP domain. If a domain proxy is in use, enter that. If not, re-enter the SIP domain. The default voicemail feature code for the selected PBX software will auto-populate, but if this enterprise is using something non-standard, this is the place to change it. Again, the most common proxy port will auto-populate, but if it needs to be edited, it can be. Click Save Settings. Now there are several PBX settings that are optional. If you have a single sign-on portal that you would like your users to be able to access from the TeamMate app, click Manage SSO Settings to open the menu to set up that configuration. Additionally, if you're using NetSapiens like I am in this demo, you will also have this Advanced Settings tab. It's roughly the same information as SSO settings, but this is where the NetSapiens API integration is enabled. For the purposes of this demo, I've skipped this so that the setup process will look the same as it does for all other PBX types. If you check this box, it will auto-populate the single sign-on settings tab for you, though. This is also where feature codes can be configured for each PBX location that is created. If you choose to deploy the custom Teams app, this is how those get populated. More about that elsewhere, though. It is now time to add users. Adding users is where the connection between Microsoft Teams and the PBX occurs. This step is the whole reason we are here. It is where the magic happens. As such, this step will be by far the most labor-intensive part of the project. Credentials for each user will need to be gathered from both Microsoft and the PBX. While it is possible to add users individually, it's also possible to use the provided CSV file to do multiple users at once. First, I will show the process for adding users individually. Select the PBX location, voice route, and Microsoft user in question from the drop-down menu fields. Enter the user's phone number. The SIP user and the SIP authentication ID are sometimes the same, like they are in this video, but some PBXs make a distinction between the two. Enter the user's SIP password twice for verification. Make a choice based on business need whether or not to allow Teams voicemail for the user. You can disable it so that the PBX takes precedent. If you are making use of the single sign-on portal feature, enter the user's credentials here, but if not, leave these fields blank. Click Add User, and you'll be taken to the dashboard to watch the status bar progress. Once done, you can see this user is now showing as active in Teams with the last of the licensing indicators turning green, and their name turns into a hyperlink, which if you click the hyperlink, that takes you to the menu necessary to edit any of the settings that were just input for the user. Now I will show you the process for adding users in bulk, and I will also show how the process differs if the users are being added by the reseller. Select the desired PBX location and voice route from the dropdowns. Download the sample CSV file and fill it out with the same information that we just saw on the individual setup page. You can upload as many as 50 users at a time with this file, but if you have more than 50, please break it up into smaller batches. The file also has some additional fields that can be used for some advanced features with BroadWorks, but if you're not setting up a BroadWorks PBX, disregard those columns and leave them blank. Complete your file, then upload the file. This time I did the upload as a reseller. However, global admin consent is necessary to commit any changes to users in Microsoft. Therefore, we get this message that says, Request Enterprise Admin to sync. When the admin logs in themselves, they will see a button on their dashboard that says Sync Teams Users, and that will complete the setup. They can also do it individually from the Manage Users page by clicking Enable Calling from the Action menu. If you like, setup can end here. There is the option of building a custom app for Teams that will enable some fancier features for the customers, though. Teams has its own plugin marketplace, and TeamMate offers the choice to build a custom app for each enterprise. To set up the app, click on Teams Management and then Application Settings. In order to deploy an app, Microsoft must create a team in Teams that's used as a distribution list. That team must have a name, and it cannot be deleted once it's created. Enter the name of the enterprise or something similarly descriptive for this field. For the sake of demonstration, I will simply fill out each of these fields with the field name so we can see where they feed. The application name will be used for the user to find the app in the marketplace, so make sure you name it something that will be easy for end users to identify on site because each user is responsible for downloading it themselves. However, if you have custom branding configured at the reseller level, this field will be overwritten by those configurations. If you would like to replace the TeamMate icons, you can, but Microsoft requires two versions, large and small. The large version must be exactly 192 by 192 pixels, and the small version must be exactly 32 by 32. Both must be saved in PNG format. If you are planning on using an SSO portal, enter the name of the tab that it will appear on. If not, leave this field blank. You can also include a link to the portal if you don't want to use single sign-on but still want the users to have easy access. For demonstration, I will just put Wikipedia in here. One way users can access feature codes is by enabling call cards. If your enterprise makes use of in-call feature codes, such as turning call recording on or off, this is a good way to put them front and center. Once you click Submit, it will take a few minutes for Microsoft to build the application, and there will be 3 notifications total in the activity feed by the time it's done. Once built, the user must locate the app in the Teams marketplace. They can pin it to their sidebar by right-clicking. In this example, there were branding settings configured by the reseller, so the application name got overwritten. See more about those fields in our branding video. On my SSO portal tab, which I did not configure with SSO settings but put a Wikipedia link instead, we see Wikipedia. On PBX feature management, we see the feature codes that were configured for this PBX location. The About tab just has some information that is set at the reseller branding level. Now, if you click on the Teams tab, you will see the team that was created by the app deployment process. And from here, all that's left to do is start making phone calls.